Resource Manager with EDSS.
With the regional municipality, so thank you for being here. And you've been on the job for how long, sir?
Since September.
September, so coming up on 9 months or 8 months or so, 7 months. Sir?
David McCutcheon. I'm the business manager for Ledcor Group of Companies up here in Fort McMurray.
Awesome, thank you for being here. Who else? Lindley?
Hi everybody, I'm Lindley. I work at the municipality. I work with Ross in public affairs. I live in Fort McMurray.
Awesome. And both of you were here before, right? Both of you, so we all know the two of them. So why don't we have the participants introduce themselves very quickly?
I'm Megan. I work at the youth center and I live in Fort Chip.
Very good.
I'm Marion. I teach here at Chipewyan.
Awesome. And phenomenal help in making sure that we always have wonderful hospitality in the building, that all of the technology works. She truly goes above and beyond to make things very, very smooth. Please give her a round of applause. All right, go ahead.
I am Dana Wiley. I work at the RCMP.
Constable. Sergeant, sorry. I know he gets pissed when I say that. But we have a long-standing relationship now. Yeah, that's right. It's actually been 6, brother. 6 weeks. Go ahead.
I'm Rod. I'm the, as one girl put it in town, I'm the sheriff.
Very good. Yes.
I am Expire Allison, and I work as a clerk typist at the RTSM subsidiary.
Awesome.
Claudia Boiser, housing manager for the First Nation here.
Awesome.
Sarah Newman. I'm HCA for the Mississippi First Nation.
Awesome.
I'm Tanya Dashkovich, and I'm in adult care for ACO.
Thank you.
Lori Powder, and I'm an RN with Community Health Board.
Wonderful.
And I'm Sally Workford, and I'm the manager with the Regional Municipality.
And we have a couple of people that weren't able to join us tonight that had emailed me beforehand. And I really appreciate when all of you do that. Sending me a note, hey, I'm not going to be there, Ian. And I don't know if you do that out of kindness or just afraid that I'll call you. But for some reason, yeah, that's what it is. For some reason, you let me know, and I appreciate it. So the last 3 weeks, we talked about this concept of being an agent of change, right? It was the first competency of today's effective leader. And in that, we talked, if you recall, we had significant conversation about how do I expand my sphere of influence? Who remembers that? How do I expand my sphere of influence? And what do I do to build that trusting relationship? And I gave you 2 exercises. Anybody remember what the 2 exercises were?
Personal survey.
Okay, personal survey. Did you send it out? Yeah. All right, so talk to me about the personal survey. And for those of you that are joining us, we asked them to send out an anonymous survey to the people that they work with every day, maybe even family members, the stakeholders that they support, to send out an anonymous survey. 3 questions. What am I doing right? What am I doing wrong? Suggestions for my improvement. And if you could send me back to school, what class would you make me take? Somebody tell me what they gained from that exercise.
I wasn't as bad as I thought. I was scared to stay here.
Okay.
It was actually not, it was good.
And so you got some feedback.
I got good feedback.
And it surprised you, maybe the positive feedback that you got?
Yeah, I thought it would be worse.
And so what did you when you read that and you read the totality of it and you saw that there was a lot of positive things that people were saying, what did you take from that?
Well, probably for sure.
That
Makes you feel better, like, because you know that you're actually doing good.
Very good. So, oftentimes we focus on question number 2, right? What am I doing wrong? But it's also, as I said in the coaching session, it's also a tremendous opportunity to validate those things that you're doing and clarify whether what you thought you were good at is what people perceive to be your assets. So it's a good check and balance. Anybody else that sent it out that want to share it?
I sent it out. I got quite a few back, which was really nice. For me, the positives, and there was lots of positives, reinforced what I hoped people saw in me. A couple people were quite honest with the negatives, and my first reaction was emotional, and that's kind of what they had said to me. When you get negative feedback, you're emotional immediately, and you need to not do that.
Mm-hmm.
So it was honest, even though I didn't like it, so now I need to figure that out.
So, like in your situation and the situation for all of us, and we talked about this in the coaching session, the real key to this exercise is what do I do with it? Because it's an exercise to proactively build trusting relationships. Remember, we said that an open door policy is a joke, in my opinion. Saying you have an open door means nothing. Because most people are not going to walk through the open door, especially if it's something contentious. Who's going to walk into a boss's office or a leader's office when it's a contentious situation? That's probably not going to happen. So we have to be proactive in seeking out information. So the survey is an opportunity for you now to go build a trusting relationship with those people. Taking the feedback that you've been given and doing what with it? Changing your behavior. And you're going to use that change continuum that we talked about, hopefully, to do that. Now, all of us, the last time we were together, said that on Monday of this coming week, I'm going to challenge you. Anybody remember what I'm going to challenge you with? You've got to make your, anybody know? Commitment. Right? Now's when we make the commitment. Now's when we're going to pick out that thing that we're going to get better at. Why now? Well, because one, you did introspection through that leadership history survey. Two, we did a leadership style inventory, right? So we have a good sense, or at least a better sense of who we are and where we're at. Now you've sent out that survey, so you have feedback from everybody else. We should be able to now effectively, and with some, with some logic and a little bit of depth and breadth, be able to pick out the one thing we want to get better at in the balance of our 9 weeks together. Does that make sense? So on Monday morning when you get your email, there'll be a link, and you're going to click that link, or at least you're going to start to think about, and then by the end of the week, you're going to pick out your one thing that you're going to get better at. And then we're going to all focus for 9 weeks. Me and you, no one else sees it but me and you. Me and you are going to walk together for 9 weeks. So that by the time we're done with this, we all of us that live here, all of a sudden I live here with you, all of us that live here can stand up and look to the community and say, you know what, at least I got better at one thing. And remember, the idea was the cumulative impact of that would be a better community. Anybody else, something you took from the 3 weeks? Because we talked about building trusting relationships, we talked about expanding our sphere of influence, we talked about effective listening. What else? Anybody have anything else that you took away from the 3 weeks? Yes.
I had a situation where I needed to talk to a staff member I work with and give some negative feedback. And so I thought about it, and what came to me was your idea of when you approach somebody with what are they thinking and feeling and saying, maybe that'll work for this situation. So I did. Went to the person and said, how did yesterday go for you? We hung out a lot, we did a lot together, how did it go? Good, really good. Okay. I said, I have a concern. And she knew immediately what the concern was. It went well. And
The conversation went well.
Yeah, and it hasn't been a concern since.
Awesome.
And it was really good advice, so it's good.
That's wonderful. And two things. First, thanks for sharing that. Second, good job, Ian. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. But in all sincerity, it's really good job to you. Because one of the things we challenged you with when we first started was that the third assumption that I had was that you would actually take something that we talked about and go try it. And you did that. And it's a risk, especially in a potentially contentious situation, to try something. And this idea of validating other human beings by listening to them, asking open-ended questions, right? Doing 80% of the listening, 20% of the talking, to establish that relationship, to build that bridge so I can say, let me give you some feedback. Or, here's what I observed. Or whatever. So that's a nice segue into our next competency. So our next competency is big picture, holistic systems thinking. But before we can get into the meat of the competency, I got to give you some background. How many would agree with me, even in a rural community, there doesn't seem to be enough time or energy or effort at your disposal to get done everything you need to get done? There doesn't seem to be enough time, energy, or effort available to you to get done everything you need to get done. I felt that way in the past. In every job that I've ever done, I was beyond my capacity. I was elevated or promoted to a position that I had no business being in. Every job I've ever had. I didn't have the knowledge for the job. I didn't have the experience for the job. I didn't have the education for the job. I didn't have anything necessary that would have qualified me for the job. In most instances, it was a battlefield promotion. All of a sudden, you just get stuck in. You seem like you can, you won't die from the experience. Go do it. And I got shoved in over and over and over again. And whether it was a young coach or whether it was, we were talking about the casino industry. Some of you know, youngest in the casino industry to have the job that I had at the time in the whole industry, anywhere in the world. So every time, venture capital business, everything, always beyond my capacity.
I don't know if I agree with that. Obviously, the person, your supervisor above you, most times wouldn't shove you into the position if they didn't think you could do it. You think it was beyond your capacity, but obviously they didn't. So
I agree with that.
Yeah, your self-assessment says, I'm not ready for this job, but you successfully made it. Good. Obviously, the person above you saw something you did not.
And usually what they saw was a guy that would work 110 hours to figure out a way to make it work. And you're right. So there was an asset. But I didn't have the pedigree. I didn't have the background. I didn't have the educational experience. But I think there's probably some validity to what you're saying. In one of those experiences, when I went from supervising about 8 people, well, I guess it was about 20 people to 750 people in like a day, which made no sense. People were just drunk. I'm seriously. All these casino guys were drunk. They were drunk one night, and they're like, hey, let's find somebody to run the place. Ian! Ah! So the next thing you know, I'm running the thing. That's a true story. I mean, it is literally like that. I remember going home every night crying. I was crying because I knew that all these people's hopes and dreams and their livelihoods were in my hands. Every direct report had been in the industry longer than I had been alive. They knew I shouldn't be in the job. Everybody knew I shouldn't be in the job, but here I was in the job. And because it was an owner-driven organization, when the owner decided something was going to happen, then it happened. And I remember I was looking for answers. I didn't have the answer. I didn't have enough time, energy, or effort at my disposal to get done everything I needed to get done. And I came, because you guys can already tell, I like little quotes, right? You posted one on your Facebook page, right? I like the little quotes. And I was searching through this book of quotes, and I came to a quote by a guy named Archimedes. And Archimedes was a mathematician. He was a philosopher. He was a genius. He was the father of one of the fathers of geometry. Archimedes came up with the fulcrum and the lever, the stick in the rock, and the push it down and it'll lift something heavier than you, and the compound pulley where you can do a lot more with a little bit. So this guy Archimedes' quote was, "Give me a place to stand and I will move the world." You know that quote. Give me a place to stand and I will move the world. And I thought, oh, that's awesome. The power of the human potential and the power of the human capacity. And what can a human being do? This is amazing. But I was intrigued because I didn't know who Archimedes was, not the sharpest pencil in the box. So I started reading. And I actually found the context that quote was from. What Archimedes was talking about was his fulcrum and lever. His piece of wood, his rock, that he could put that underneath a big boulder and he could lift something that was 10 and 15 and 20 times his weight. And then I went on to read about this compound pulley that he invented. And when he first tested the compound pulley, he hooked it to a boat in the middle of a bay that 10 men had to be in place to pull in the day before. So 10 men pulled this boat in, and he did it with just himself in this compound pulley. And that's when it dawned on me. What Archimedes was saying was, if I have a fulcrum and a lever big enough, I can move just about anything. So just give me a place to stand where I can operate my fulcrum and lever. Well, Ian, what does that have to do with this? What he was really saying was, if I have a system that's appropriate for what I need to do, I can probably do it. The fulcrum and lever is a force multiplying system. So write that down. Force multiplying. Write that down. Force multiplying. Force multiplying. Force multiplying. So is it that we don't have enough time, energy, and effort at our disposal to get done everything we need to get done? Or is it that we just don't have good enough systems? I would suggest to you, at least I came to the conclusion that day, that it wasn't that I wasn't smart enough. It wasn't that I wasn't working hard enough. It was because I didn't have the best systems. That began my journey on this concept of systems thinking. Then I came to this conclusion, and maybe you have as well. I was outside one afternoon, and I was thinking to myself that the sun is millions of miles away, and yet if it moved 3 centimeters further away or 3 centimeters closer, it would completely change life as we knew it on Earth, right? But there was nothing connecting it, and yet it is connected. Then I looked one night at the moon, and I noticed, and I said to myself, that thing way far, far away controls the tide, and yet it's not connected by wires. And I started again this journey of systems thinking. So the point that I'm going to try to make to you tonight is that the whole world is a system. That your body is a system. That the thermostat is a system. What's a system? A system is an integrated set of parts that have been deeply combined for a specific objective or purpose. Systems. And I would going to try to make the case over the next 3 weeks that systems thinking is the leadership quality, one of the leadership competencies we need today. Let me make it deeper point. So everything in this community is a system. It's a system, even though you can't see it. Like here's an example. I don't know, that's just what we do around here. That's an example of a system that is just organically taken and grown up and taken hold. Sadir could probably tell you in 70 departments throughout RMWB, systems have taken hold. Nobody designed them. They weren't put together for a specific purpose. And yet, here's what happens. That's what we do around here. In Fort Chip, if I sat down with you, if we went out to, where was the first place you took me to eat the first time we came?
Edith's.
No. Yeah, Edith's. And we went outside and sat down on the old cement there and looked out. You would start to tell me about all the systems that are in play here. The clique of people here. The family here. The hatred there. You could tell me about all these systems that have organically grown up and taken hold. Am I right or wrong? Now, here's the tough part. Those systems are strong. Or systems happen this way. We take and we intentionally develop and organize parts for a specific task or a specific outcome. But what happens over a period of time is that system is no longer relevant. It's no longer for the purpose it was intended. How many of you have ever seen that? So now all of a sudden we're following a system, but everything around the system has changed. Systems. The 21st century will be won and ruled by systems thinkers because there's not enough time, energy, or effort to get done everything I need to get done. Here's another example. Social system. I don't know. I'm just happy to be having this baby. My mom had me when she was 15, and her mom had her when she was 15, and here I am, 15, ready to have a baby. Now, I'm not saying, that's not a value judgment. I'm not making a value judgment. I'm just saying, isn't that interesting? Just like I hear this sometimes when I'm in Toronto. I hear this. I'm a doctor. My dad was a doctor, and his dad was a doctor, and we're just a family of doctors. System.
My dad was a farmer.
And that lady who called you sheriff probably wishes you were a farmer again. You know I love you. You know I love you, right? You know I love you. You know I love you. Listen now. This is really important. This is really important. How many of you would say, as a society, we're completely satisfied? Are we completely satisfied with the development of the youth of our country? Are we satisfied? Yes or no?
Absolutely not.
Okay, you know why? Because we don't have a comprehensive system for developing the citizen of tomorrow. All the youth-serving organizations, both educational, faith-based, community-based, have we made a list of all of the qualities and attributes we want to see of that citizen? Have we then worked and built a system, a deeply integrated set of parts for that specific outcome? The answer is no, we have not. That's why we're not satisfied with the result. How about this? Do we have a system for helping newcomers and helping them establish themselves in the community and any community in Canada? Maybe hit and miss, popcorn like pop, 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 but not a comprehensive system. Systems thinking, force multiplier. So whether it's personal, am I a good delegator? Or whether it's community, do we have a system for building the citizen of tomorrow? At the end of the day, you have to think in terms of systems because life is a system. There's no other audience that would understand this better than those of you that have heritage over a period of generations here in this community. Your ancestors understand the holistic concept of life. Am I right or wrong? Understand the holistic meaning of life. That we are all connected. That tree and that sun and that ground and that earth and all of the animal, that there's a symbiotic relationship. Now, I'm not going to go down a long road because that's not my life experience. But I do know this. I know that everything here is connected. And I know that even though after this 15 weeks I might never see you again, our lives are still connected. And not even because of this journey, but because if I'm over here selling crack every day, fathering children and not caring for them, is that good or bad for you? Bad for you. You eventually will pay for that, won't you? In some way, shape, or form. Am I right or wrong? You will eventually pay for that, even though we never meet or talk. On the other hand, if I'm a hard worker, I'm contributing not just taxes, but volunteering in the community, taking care of my kids, raising them upright, keeping my neighborhood clean. Is that good or bad for you? That's good for you. Because there's a symbiotic relationship between us. I would suggest to you that if you can see the systems that are in play, if you then have the wherewithal to help create systems that are relevant, meaningful, and impactful, you'll be a successful leader today. Because there's not enough time, energy, or effort to get done everything you need to get done. Now, that's big talk, but the simplicity of the competency is this. The big picture, holistic, systems thinker has the ability to recognize the system that's in play, evaluate whether it's still relevant and meaningful, and then change it if necessary. Systems thinking. The challenge with the next 3 weeks is all of you participants have different objectives. Some of you told me that you wanted to learn more community systems. How do I fundraise? Others of you told me you wanted to learn specific systems about leadership. How do I motivate or how do I delegate? I'm going to give you all of that over the next 3 weeks. So we're going to learn this systems thing by teaching you specific systems. You're going to have to pick and choose the ones that are most relevant to you. Now, one system that we're all going to learn and we'll talk about tonight is time. Can I maximize the utilization of my time? Do I know how to take the 168 hours that I have in a week and make the most of it? How many of you have dealt with somebody that doesn't know how to do that? How frustrating is it to have a boss? How frustrating is it to have the boss that doesn't know how to make the most use of your time or theirs? And they're regularly wasting your time. They're regularly blowing your time away because they don't have a concept of how to maximize their own utilization of time. So we will all talk about time. But in some of the other aspects, I'll give you a choice of what you want to talk about. But in each one of those aspects, it's really just to teach you to be a systems thinker. Because as we talked about on the plane, if we can help you to become systems thinkers, you'll walk out in the community and start looking and noticing the systems that are at play. And you'll say, did that organically grow up and nobody intended it? Was it established for a specific purpose? And on either way, is it working? No, it's not. Let's build better systems. And whether that's a system to solve an alcohol and drug issue, whether that's a system for building the citizen of Fort Chip for tomorrow, whether that's a system of how to get the various factions and stakeholder groups to actually work together, systems thinking. But listen to Archimedes. This isn't because you're brilliant. It's just because you know how to build a force multiplying system. Make sense? Okay, turn the page. So let me just say two things. Listen to what Senge said. He was one of the fathers of systems thinking. He said, business and human endeavors are systems. We tend to focus on snapshots of isolated parts and wonder why the deepest problems never get solved. So I go try to, like in healthcare, I go try to solve a healthcare issue. And I try to solve cancer. Can we solve cancer? Which obviously we want to try to do something about that. But we're not dealing with the root causes of nutrition, of lifestyle, and the like. Now, you know that from your educational background, from your professional background, right? So we're trying to take a sliver of the problem, one piece, instead of a systemic change, right? A holistic approach. Holistic is always cheaper. And ultimately, it's always more efficient and effective. From a business process standpoint, you're always going to get a bigger bang for your buck from a systems approach. But every single day in municipalities all across Canada and all around the world, community leaders are looking slivers at a time. Don't make that mistake. A carburetor, a car engine, is a system. A pile of rocks is not a system. If you take out one rock, it still has a pile of rocks. Well, are you talking about systemic thinking? Yes, it is sequential, but it's bigger than that. It's not just a sequence of thinking. It's a bigger approach. It's the idea of everything being connected and trying to solve problems or make things happen in that sense. And this idea of a force multiplier. Listen what Capra said, that if you wanted to move in systems thinking, you had to shift your attention from parts to seeing the whole, from things to relationships, from structures to processes, from hierarchy to network, from rationale to the intuitive. In other words, what the hell just happened to what do I intend to have happen? From analysis to creation. The world is moving this way. So if you want to be successful, in my opinion, you're a proactive, systems thinking, holistic thinker. Just like we did last time, let's pull out the self-survey. Let's go through the self-survey really, really quick. Self-survey. Did any of our guests want a handout just so you know what we're talking about? Thank you. You can share that over there. So, I'm going to read them randomly. You're going to assess yourself. Remember, the point of this self-assessment is so that you can focus your learning over the next 3 weeks. I'll just read them out loud, but you give yourself a 1, a 10, or something in between. 1, a 10, or something in between. Ready, set, go. I understand there's a symbiotic relationship between human beings. I can apply strategies for learning about a stakeholder group, learning about other people. Keep going. I'm just going to read them randomly. I'm aware that of my community's culture or DNA. I can facilitate the development of teams. I'm aware of what motivates another human being. I can facilitate the development of processes and systems that foster and support success. Oh, here's a typo. I have a system for moral development. That should be morale. I have a system for effective delegation. Are you a great delegator? I have a system for the recruitment of volunteers. I have a system for fund development. I can go out and raise money. I can apply techniques that will generate creative, out-of-the-box thinking. I have a system in place for the creation of innovative ideas. I have strategies to motivate another human being. Okay, when you're done with that little self-survey, just pick up your eyes and I'll know you've completed it. And then we'll get moving. Either 1, I'm totally not like that. 10, I'm totally like that, or something in between. Remember, these are the indicators of the competency. The indicators of the competency. And for all of you that are watching on the archive, feel free to pause and then jump back to us so you don't have to sit through all of this. Look at the little box at the bottom once you've finished. If any of the parts of the system are weakened or misaligned, the system will fail. If you're not completely satisfied with your life, it's probably a systems issue. I don't understand, Ian. Do you have a system for building trusting relationships? Do you have a system to organize yourself? Do you have a system for reaching your goals? Do you have a system? It's all systems-based, in my opinion. Now, you have to check me and see if you think I'm wrong. That's fine. Go do some research. Go look introspectively. But at the end of the day, it's going to always boil down to the way you're doing it, your system. Your system. Now, here's what was freeing for me. I don't know if it is for you. This is what was freeing for me. I don't know if it is for you. The day that I realized that I could choose the system I use, the day that I realized I could do just about anything. Example might be this project in Ghana. So, less than a year ago, actually only 7 months ago, this whole thing started. In less than a year from when we announced we were doing it to the date it'll be complete, it'll be less than a year that we will gather 30 people, we will take them to Ghana, we will make a significant impact in a foreign country and come back. The only way that we're able to do that is there's some good systems in place. And they're not just tangible systems. Some of them are intangible systems, but they're systems. Now, I can honestly tell you that personally, I have no idea how to do something like that. I can't explain it to you necessarily, but I know that we can deploy certain systems to make it work and do it very, very quickly. That's the concept of force multiplying. So if you ever feel overwhelmed, if you ever feel like you're beyond your capacity, if you think the challenges are too great, then listen to Archimedes, which basically said, he said, give me a place to stand, but what he really meant was, if I can create the right system, I can do just about anything. That's freeing. That takes the pressure off. So I don't have to be smarter than everybody else. I don't have to be more talented than everybody else. I don't have to have a bigger bank account than everybody else. It doesn't matter the color of my skin. It doesn't matter my gender. It's just about, can I create the right system for what the times require? Over the next 3 weeks, I'm going to hopefully expose you to a number of different systems in an attempt to not only give you more tools, but also to help you be a systems thinker. So the power of choice and the right system, I can do just about anything. Because I can choose the system I used. No one's forcing you to do certain systems. You can choose the system for you personally. You might not have choices of the systems that are being done at work, necessarily, but you certainly can choose the systems that you use for your own personal life. Okay, let's jump into these systems. So over the next 3 weeks, I'm going to share with you a system to create an innovative idea. I don't think that innovative thinking is just because somebody sprinkled pixie dust on your head and all of a sudden you're innovative. I think that there is a pattern of thinking to lead you to an innovative idea. For a whole week, we're going to talk about how to maximize the utilization of your time. The number one commodity that you have at your disposal is time. The one thing that winners and losers have in common is time. Every human being has 60 seconds to a minute, 60 minutes to an hour, 24 hours in a day, and 168 hours in a week. It's what you choose to do with your time. I'm not saying you could choose who your parents were. I'm not saying you could choose how you grew up. I'm not saying that you can choose some things, but I can guarantee you this. You can choose what you do with some of that time every week, which means you can choose to do something productive with it. How do I motivate another human being? We'll talk a little bit about that tonight, but we'll also unpack that in the 3 weeks. And then you see multiple things. Volunteer recruitment, fund development, power communication strategies, and effective delegation. I'm going to have you pick out which is most relevant to you. So you all don't have to learn all that, but over the coming weeks, you'll see those things on the portal, and you'll say, you know what, I want to learn more about volunteer recruitment. Here's a system for that. I want to learn more about effective delegation. Here's a system for that. Like in your situation, you might want to learn more about effective delegation. But there might be others in the room that don't need to delegate every day, right? So you'll pick the ones. But remember, the point is to help you learn to be a systems thinker. The whole world's a system. Can you operate in it? First system. Okay, somebody tell me how you come up with a great idea today. How do you come up with a great idea? So you're sitting in a meeting, we need a great idea. Tell me the way you come up with a great idea now. Do you do this? In the back. That was way more information than we needed. And let's all not try to visualize that, please. Okay, somebody tell me, how do you come up with a great idea now? Okay, you brainstorm, but explain that to me. What do you do? Throw out different ideas to each other. So here we are, we're all sitting in a room, there's a community problem, and let's start throwing out ideas. And usually the process probably looks something like this. Probably. Looks something like this. Let's take what we got. Let's figure out where we want to go, and then let's try to create some steps to get there. How many of you agree with me? You take the resources you have today, the time, the money, the people, the whatever. And then you say to yourself, well, we'd like it to be this. And then you try to assemble a series of parts in some logical way to get from here to there. That's the typical both governmental and community planning model, and in many businesses. This is the way we come up with the, hi there, how are you? Good to see you. Would you like a bun?
Oh, no.
Oh, you're okay? All right. Just hospitality. What's wrong with you people? Follow me here. Have a good day. So here, follow me. That was just a little ADD moment. How many of you know that was an ADD moment? Follow me. This is called resource-based planning. So the resource-based planning. Let me take what I got, let me figure out where I want to go, and let me try to get there. Would you agree with me that you'll never come up with an innovative idea this way? You know why? Because it only takes into consideration what you got. And if it only takes into consideration what you got, you're probably going to end up with the same old answer that you've always gotten. Am I right or wrong? So here's me, the least innovative person you've ever met in your life. Oh, wait a minute, Ian, I Googled you. You got that award for being you got nominated for the Prime Minister's Social Innovator of the Year. How can you say that? Well, because I wasn't very innovative. Bought all my clothes, still do, off the mannequin. I'll just take what's on that mannequin right there, please. I sat in the meeting, we were all around the big table, and somebody came up with a brilliant idea, and I was the one going like this. Ugh, I never come up with a good idea. Because I didn't. So I took the time, and hopefully you'll take the time to just go to the University of Google, the University of Yahoo, and type in systems thinking or creative thinking or critical thinking. And what you'll come to find, just like I did, is that it's about the sequence that you think. Every one of you has a sequence you follow. Science proves this out. In other words, when a problem is presented to you, you probably approach it in the same sequence. Now that sequence came through the leadership history served. Remember, leadership came through your life experiences, came through your background, your tragedies, your victories. You have a sequence for problem solving. You have a sequence for taking advantage of opportunities. You have a sequence for taking on conflict. You have a sequence. You think this, and then you think this, and you think this. All the major universities have done research around this. And when you Google it, when you read about it, all of them say that that sequence becomes so profound that it actually creates grooves in your brain because the synapses and the chemicals fire the same way over and over again. So in reading the research of Dr. Ludwig and others, I started to realize that, wait a minute, being creative is not about being brilliant. It's about having a sequence of thinking that was more likely to take me to a creative idea. So now all of a sudden, creativity is about a choice. It's not about just being born. Innovation is not who my mother and father were. Innovation is a learned trait. Now, am I guaranteeing that every time you sit down to brainstorm, you'll come up with a brilliant idea? No. But I would suggest to you that we can lay out a sequence of questioning that is more likely to take us to a great idea. Why is that so important today? Why is it so important that we have as many citizens as possible in our community trying to come up with great ideas? Or as many people in an organization. Why is that so important today? Okay, because everybody thinks differently. Why else? Why is it so important that we can get creative ideas from as many people as possible today?
And you'll have different solutions for different issues.
How many of you were just profoundly struck by that girl that hung herself? The rape victim whose video goes viral, who goes and hangs herself. Wouldn't you agree with me that the problems of our communities are so complex that no one person is going to come up with a brilliant idea to solve it? Don't we need as many people as possible trying to come up with creative ideas? Or this happened down in the States, but I know when I landed yesterday in Calgary, you know how you land on a plane, you're told not to turn on your phone, but you immediately turn it on to see it. And then all of a sudden, all I got was alert after alert. CBC News, CBC News, CBC News. Bomb has gone off, bomb has gone off, bomb has gone off. My wife texting me, because we had friends that were running the Boston Marathon. One of the girls that she danced with for years was at the Boston Marathon. So she's worried about her friend, the whole thing. And she texted me, my wife texted me, Gina said, isn't it horrific that people are out trying to reach their dream of running a marathon and somebody blows their legs off? Makes no sense. How many say it makes no sense? So the complex problems and issues and challenges we face today are not going to be solved because of some brilliant individual. They're going to be solved because we are thinking innovatively. It's in all of our best interest to become more innovative in our thinking. All right, let's forget about world, far, far away, right here. Those of you that live here every day, would you say that the problems and challenges you face are quite complex? Would you agree with me that those relationships and those barriers have been in place for a while and they will take some effort to unwind? Am I right or wrong? Don't we need some creative ideas to solve it? So, I'm going to lay out for you the sequence of thinking that we came up with. We took this sequence and put it on 3x5 card. And I took it to every meeting that I went to for a year. True story, every meeting. Ironically, and I'm not saying this is why, but ironically, about a year after that, that's when the World Leisure Congress said Let Them Be Kids was one of the foremost innovative programs in the world. That's a big deal. So we went from not being innovative at all to being recognized as one of the four most innovative social leisure programs in the world. How does that happen? It's just a sequence I'm about to share with you. It has nothing to do with brilliance, intelligence. It's just a sequence of thinking. So where does it begin? All right, let's walk through it. So number one, what do I want it to be? So from now on, when you sit down, what do I want it to be? What do I want it to be? So from now on, every time you enter into a conversation, a brainstorming or whatever, you're always going to start with that. What do I want it to be? Now, critical thinking specialists or engineers would call this outcome-based thinking. And it is outcome-based thinking. What do I want it to be? And what does it smell like, look like, feel like, taste like? Why am I using those descriptives? Why smell like, look like, feel like, taste like? All our senses. But it also is what gets people to buy in. Not this 3 weeks, but the following 3 weeks when we talk about being a catalyst for responsibility, we'll talk very specifically about how do I get human beings to buy in. But for now, just for now, I want to be able to describe my vision in very tangible terms. What does it smell like, look like, feel like, taste like? Remember we talked about a long time ago, we talked about people care about whys and not hows? I get people to buy in when I can explain the why behind it, not just the how of it. So, what do I want it to be? What we start with like Covey said, we start with the end in mind, but I'm an outcome-based thinker. So I'm always going to start with what I want it to be. Then, next step in the sequence, number 2, where are we at today? Where are we at today? Next to that, write this, courageous conversation. We need to have a courageous conversation. What do you think I mean by that? So, what do I want it to be? This beautiful vision. Where are we at today? That's the second step in the sequence. Where are we at today? What do you think I mean by courageous conversation? Okay, truthful. What else? What's a courageous conversation? Okay, that you're willing to say what needs to be said, even though it might have some ramifications. What else do you think a courageous conversation is? What's that? Being honest. Talking about what really matters. Here's a courageous conversation to me. We talk about what's really important, what matters. We are not seeking to blame. We're not having a conversation to figure out who we can blame. We're having a conversation to talk about what's really going on. We're free to express our opinions with no ramifications, our perspectives, our insight, whatever. And then finally, we're talking about solutions, not blame. So we're not looking to blame. We're talking openly and freely. We talk about what really matters, and we're talking about a solution. Would you agree with me that whether it's Fort Chip or any community, we would be better served to have many courageous conversations? Would you agree with me Canada as a whole needs to have some courageous conversations about some things? Yeah. But every country does. Why are we reluctant to have those courageous conversations?
People are scared of it.
People are afraid. So we as leaders have to create a context where it's okay to have the courageous conversation. Because we know we're only going to come up with an innovative idea if we talk about stuff that's really going on. The true system that's happening. So that when the little girl says, well, I'm just happy to be 15 having a baby, we really talk about how that situation and that system created itself. Not just talk around it, over it, under it. We talk about it. And not in an attempt to figure out who to point the finger at and then who to attack. But what is the reality? If you don't have this conversation, I can almost guarantee you the system you build will not be effective until you talk about what's really going on. This is difficult. It's certainly difficult in a large organization, and it's certainly difficult in a community, but someone has to be brave enough. And it's a lot easier for her to be brave when all the rest of you are willing to join her in that bravery. But if she's out on her own, like a lone wolf in the wilderness, barking, 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 she just gets beaten down. How many of you ever experienced that? So instead, that's the whole one of the points of this program. We're all learning these concepts so you can collectively go and ask and be a catalyst for some of these courageous conversations. Because without them, we'll never build the ideal. Next step in the sequence. And this is unique. When you go to Google creative thinking or innovative thinking, you're not going to get this one. This is unique. The next step in the sequence is, what attitudes stand in the way? What attitudes stand in the way? So I can't just say, okay, here's the problems, here's the issue, or here's what I want it to be, here's the problems, here's the issues. I then got to ask myself, what's the attitudinal barriers that are going to prevent us from getting from here to there? Because that's usually what kills the plan. What kills the plan isn't money. How many of you agree with me, if the right 7 people in Alberta decided to pour a whole bunch of money into Fort Chip, this place would have a whole bunch of money? Not saying it doesn't have a whole bunch of money, but I'm just saying. If the right 7 attitudes shifted, would you have money tomorrow morning? Tomorrow morning. So it's not a resource issue. It's usually attitudinal. So as a planner, and I'm trying to come up with a creative idea, I might as well identify what the attitudinal challenges are today. So what do I mean by attitudinal challenges or attitudinal barriers? What do I mean by that? Okay, so one attitudinal barrier might be disbelief. I've heard this crap before. We've talked about solving these things in the past, and the RMWB has never done anything about it. How many of you have ever been in that meeting? You know what? Maybe they're right. Maybe they have seen it before. Maybe they have been tricked before. Maybe they even feel like they've been lied to. That's a potential attitudinal barrier that I better have a solution for before I try to come up with my creative idea. Give me some other examples of attitudinal barriers. What else can be an attitudinal barrier?
Negative thinking.
Okay, just negative thinking can be an attitudinal barrier. How about this? Lack of trust. Can that be an attitudinal barrier? Resentment, bitterness, attitudinal barriers.
One that I find is being an HCA, when I did my clinical practice, it's younger versus the older.
Generational, right? There's a distrust between generations. Okay. So as I'm building my plan of coming up with a creative idea, I'm saying to myself, what's the attitudinal barrier that prevents us from getting to where we're at today to what we could potentially become? Once I've identified the attitudinal barrier, then barriers, then I can go to the next sequence, which is what activities could I do to remove those attitudinal barriers? So, what do I want it to be? Where are we at today? What attitudes stand in my way? What activities could I do to remove the attitudes to get us from where we're at to what we could become? Activity. So like somebody said that there's distrust. Chili. Never plan to talk for an hour and 20 minutes after you've eaten chili. Just side note to everybody. Note to self, don't do that. Yeah, anyways. So, that's a good example. So let's say I'm RCMP. A friend of mine is a guy named Vern White. He was a longtime RCMP guy, also the chief of police in Ottawa. And now he's a standing senator. Great guy. He cut his teeth. He cut his teeth as an RCMP officer up in Nineveh. What he'll tell you about community policing is this. It's all about trust. And he told me of a situation where, for whatever reason, there was a lack of trust. And his first thing was to stand up in a room and say this: I know you don't trust us. I know you don't trust us. And I don't know what happened before me, but let me just tell you, and I'm paraphrasing now, let me just tell you, I'm going to work to build trust with you. And if you don't trust me right now, give me 1 minute. That's all I'm asking you. Give me 1 minute. And if you can trust me for 1 minute, and I do what I say I'm going to do, then I'm asking you for 5 minutes. And if I'm trustworthy for 5 minutes, then I'm asking you for an hour. And if I can get an hour, then 2 hours and 5 hours and so on and so forth. So sometimes, to remove the attitudinal barrier, I just need to say, I know you don't trust me. And maybe I can understand why you don't. Would you agree with me that would be the first step to building trust? So, when we identify an attitudinal barrier, then we can take and ask ourselves, what's the activity? What's the activity that I could do to remove that attitudinal barrier? So it might just be as easy as standing up and admitting. It might be, I need to go have some meetings. It might be a lot of things. I don't know what it would be for you in your situation. But what's the activity? And then the final step is this. What resources? What resources would I need to do the activity, to remove the attitudinal barriers, to take us from where we're at to what we could potentially become? That sequence is going to get you to more creative ideas. Well, wait a minute. That doesn't work for budget. It works for everything. I can apply that to anything. Well, show me how it works practically. Okay? You're sitting in a meeting. Sitting in a meeting. And you're not in any position of authority, but you're just sitting in the meeting. The four of us are meeting. We'll role play, okay? You guys ready? They're like, this sucks. Why are we sitting here? I like it better in the other room when we can hide in rows. We're out here in the middle. Who decided to put us on this island? Everyone's looking at us. Anyways, back to our conversation. I know she's all, oh. Okay, follow me. So we're sitting in a meeting, and I want to use this sequence to come up with a better and more creative idea. So if I'm in the meeting, I'm just going to say something like this. So what exactly are we trying to do? What are we trying to do? So we're having this talk, and we all came together, but explain to me what it is we're really trying to accomplish. And then let everybody talk. So what have I started to do? I've started to create the desired outcome, that we're going to be all clear and in agreement what the outcome is. So after what's that? Or you're going to have arguments. But at least you're going to do this. At least you're going to be a catalyst to try to get clarity on what's the point. How many of you ever sat in a meeting where we're talking about a community problem, but we never talk about what we're trying to solve? What's the point? What are we trying to get to? Then the next question might sound something like this after we've talked that out. So what's the reality of where we're at today? I mean, what's it really like today? It's this, it's that, it's that, it's this. And then I might say something like, yeah, you're right about that. Huh. I've always tried to figure out, I might say something like this, I've always tried to figure out why people don't want to move from here to there. You'd think people would want to move from here to there. And then you're going to give you, well, people don't like it, or people don't trust it, or there was that thing that happened 4 years ago, and right, we'd make a list of all the barriers. And then I might just say something like, well, what do you think we could do? What do you think we could do? What would be some activities that we could do to solve those barriers? And somebody's going to say, well, there's nothing we can do. It's always like that. But somebody else is going to say, well, we could go meet with them one-on-one. Remembering what we talked about last time, over the last 3 weeks, building those trusting relationships of influence, right? Those 4 emails you got from me, making that list, color-coding them, and then that 100 cups of coffee strategy. How many remember that? That 100 cup of coffee strategy, right, to build that trusting relationship. Then the final question is, well, how much is that going to cost? I'll give you an example, a very good example. And Lindley and Ross were a part of this example. In August of last year, we had to market Leadership Boot Camp. We had to market it, didn't we? Yeah. And we basically walked through this sequence. The desired outcome was get as many new leaders or potential leaders involved in the program as we possibly could. Where were we at today? There was a lack of awareness. There might have been in some of those stakeholder groups a lack of trust with RMWB, not because of anybody bad, just lack of knowing and relationship. So what did we set out to do? We set out to remove those barriers. How did we plan to set it out? We said we were going to go meet with everybody. And we did, didn't we? We went and met with everybody. Every group, every ethnic group, every stakeholder group, we went and met with them one-on-one, two-on-one, three-on-one, didn't we?
Yeah.
And you know what we had at the end? We had a lot of different people that, at least when Joanne Roberts, who probably knows everybody in town, walked in the room and said, I don't know 80% of the people in this room. That was a validation to me that we had a great recruitment plan. Ross, how much did that cost, that recruitment plan?
Just the time of going and a couple of cups of coffee.
Just the time of going and a few cups of coffee. It was innovative, it was creative, it was effective, and it was cheap. And the long-term impact was significant. How did you market the program? What kind of Facebook page did you have? How cool were your flyers? Well, there was nice flyers, and we have a Facebook page. But it understood, what was really important was, it understood where things were really at. The people who were members of the Somali Association may not have had a deep and strong relationship with some of the team at RMWB, right? And so we reached out and talked and met with the Filipino community and the Islamic community, and on and on and on and on and on and on and on, and a couple hundred people showed up. And that's pretty good. Another example. Anybody ever heard of Jane and Finch? Where's Jane and Finch? Toronto. Jane and Finch. The corner of Jane and Finch. At one point, I don't know if this is still true, highest murder rate in all of Canada. We were asked if we would come, let them be kids, my wife and I's initiative, were asked, could you come to Jane and Finch and would you help? We were like, sure, no problems. So we went to St. Charles Gagné School. St. Charles Gagné School is 1 block north of Jane and Finch. 1 block. 68 languages are spoken at St. Charles Gagné School. 68 languages. 2 of them are unwritten North African languages. So now we're sitting in a meeting trying to figure out how we're going to get volunteers to come to this big park build where we're going to build 2 playgrounds at the school. Because what we're trying to do is get the community to come together and share a common experience so that we can build trust amongst everybody. Make sense? So people stop killing each other, and they all start working together. There's only one problem. How are we going to... That's true. Good point. Just work together, right? So that was the strategy. The problem was, how are we going to get them there? Because there's a deep, deep lack of trust. For cops, for city officials, for community members, just not a lot of trust going on. So this is exactly what happened. We're sitting in a meeting. The guy raises his hand. Yes, I got an idea. I think we should do a flyer. Okay, tell us about that flyer. Here's what we're going to do. On one side, it's going to be in English. And on the other side, it will be in French. Yeah. I was like, dude, 68 languages, brother. I was like, that takes care of 2. Okay, that's kind of where the meeting was at. Luigi, this is no joke. Luigi raises his hand. Luigi was the vice principal of St. Charles Gagné School at the time. Luigi. Yes, Luigi. I got an idea. I think we should engage the ethnic restaurants in the community. I think we should go to them, explain to the owners and the staff what we're doing, and then have them talk it up. So that the message is delivered in the language, in a comfortable place, in a place that they trust. A trusted conduit of communication. How many say that's brilliant? Brilliant idea. Because he had identified the attitudinal barrier, and he was thinking in terms of how could I remove that. So here's what we did. Everybody just fanned out, started going to these ethnic restaurants, and sure enough, when my butt walked into the Somali restaurant, they were like, hey, brown man, what are you doing here? I was like, hey, I'm not Somali, but I love the food. And by the way, in May, we're doing this project. And so we're coming to get to know you and explain to you what we're doing, so you will in turn let your patrons know about what's going on. You know what? We had over 600 people who came out that day. Lieutenant Governor Bartleman showed up that day with 2,500 books. We had more people than we had work to do. Why? Because we're brilliant? No. Because we laid out a sequence of thinking. What do we want it to be? We need 500-600 people here to build trust. Where is it at today? Everybody hates each other. What are the attitudinal barriers? A lack of trust, a lack of understanding, so on and so forth. What activity could we do to remove that, to get to that ideal? We need to get within their stakeholder groups and the messaging come from the stakeholder group. What's the activity we could do? Go meet with them one-on-one and meet in their place where they go and that they trust. Now, how much did that marketing campaign cost us? Cost us some lunches. That's true.
So it's like meeting them on their turf.
Very little. So I not only want you to hear those two examples, but I want you to hear the principle. The principle is, what do I want it to be? Where am I at today? Courageous conversation. What attitudes would stop me from getting from here to there? What activity could I do to remove the attitudes? Attitudinal barriers. What resources would be necessary? Well, Ian, that doesn't work with Crown land. Well, what do you mean? Well, if we in Fort McMurray and Wood Buffalo and the region, if we're trying to get Crown land, we can't even build. Well, it's the same concept. What do I want it to be? Where are we at? Where are we really at today? What attitudes would have to shift for the government to be willing to let go of some of that land in an easy and efficient and effective way? That's better known as lobbying. So it's big, but it's also small. You can use it with your spouse. You can use it with an organization. Take it, put it on a 3x5 card, and start, listen now. Take it, put the sequence on a 3x5 card, and take it to every single meeting. And start sequencing your thinking through that. What do I want it to be? Where are we at today? What attitudes are in the way? What activities would I need? What resources would I need? Start walking yourself through that. I don't like your little plan for innovative thinking. Fine. I'm okay with that. I'm good. But go get one. We need creative and innovative thinkers. I'm frankly a little bit tired. I'm not a little tired. I'm a lot tired of opening up my search engine every morning and hearing of more tragic and horrific activities. I'm tired of watching our youth waste their lives away with drugs and alcohol that comes rooted from a lack of hope and belief that they can be anything or do anything. I'm fed up with our seniors being excluded from our communities and no longer being productive members of our society. The wasted potential that we see on every street corner in every community across this country and all of North America is a pandemic. Who amongst us is going to be the innovative and creative thinker? And like I told you before, Superman's not coming to Fort Chip. Get that. Hear it. Superman's not coming to Fort Chip to solve your problems. You're going to have to solve your problems. You're going to have to fix the situation. Do you have supporters from outside? You have supporters from outside. Do you have people that care deeply that fly in? They care deeply. But ultimately, it's your town. And ultimately, it's your community. And ultimately, it's a direct reflection of you. So somebody amongst you has to be innovative. So fine, you don't like my way? I'm good. But come up with a way. You don't like my approach? I'm fine. But come up with an approach. Because all those kids that I met over at that school, and the one kid that told me he had no dreams, that kills me, man. Kills me. How many would say that's unacceptable? So somebody, if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you always. That means I need you to be an innovative thinker, young lady. I know you will be. I'm serious about that in my heart, guys. Because I know you have the ability. Because Archimedes taught us that, didn't he? 2,000 years ago or more, he told us, I just need a good system. I'll choose to use that system, and I will move the world. I believe that with my heart, and my bet is on you. No offense to all the big RMWB suits in the room. My bet is on you, young lady, because you know the community. You know the players. You know the systems that are in place. So that means if you can come up with a good sequence of thinking, you'll probably come up with a good idea. All right, stop the bus for a second. Somebody tell me something you're taking away from this little bit of discussion on outside the box thinking. Obviously, we'll review it more in the coming days. Somebody tell me something you're taking from this. Archimedes, systems approach, outside the box. Somebody tell me, let's stop the bus for a second, and somebody tell me something you're taking away from our first hour together. Come on. Somebody tell me something you're taking from our first hour. Okay, think about the approach before you make the approach. Good. Okay, somebody else. Somebody tell me something you're taking from our first hour. You have to talk.
Creating a desired outcome.
That's where it all begins. And you'll find that you're better off taking a little bit more time to ensure that that outcome has some clarity so that when you do walk out in it, people understand it. That you can explain what it looks like, smell like, feel like, taste like. That's what Gandhi did. That's what Mandela did. That's what King did. They were able to explain the vision in some clarity. And they were able to describe it in very bold terms. And people got caught up in that. And that's why 1 million people showed up in Washington, D.C. in the March on Washington. That's why 1 million people showed up, or whatever the number was, at the ocean. That's why Mandela was able to transform a nation that was so deeply rooted in an approach that no one thought it would ever be changed. Well, if those things can happen, you can change Fort Chip. Right? Might be Pollyannish, might be altruistic. I just know this. I know that systems work. Okay, somebody else, something you're taking away. What are you taking away from this first hour of dialogue? Come on. It's going to sit here for a long time in silence. And I know that there's other people, because usually you guys are more talkative. So I know that there's some other people here, and you might not, we're out here in the fishbowl, and so, but just, what are you taking away? How do I wisely invest my time? We're going to talk about that in just a second, actually. So how do I take and wisely invest my time? Somebody else. Some stick-to-itiveness, right? All right, let's talk about the next system. Now, I'm only going to give you a quick overview to set the stage. Just really quick. A quick overview. And then we're going to literally take a whole week and talk about time. Now, notice, I'm using this phrase, maximizing the utilization of your time. Maximizing the use of your time. It'll all make sense with this story. What's your name again? Lori, right? Yeah. So can you and I play a game? Okay. I'm going to take $86,000 and I'm going to put it in your bank account.
Thank you.
She likes the chubby bald man. Yes. So I come to your house one morning. I knock on your door. Hi, Lori, how are you? Hi, Ian. Lori, I don't know if you knew it, but I'm a banker. You're a banker, Ian? I am a banker. And you know what? What's that? Get out. And I say to her, and I've got something for you. And she says, what do you have for me? And I say, I've got $86,000. And I wanted you to know that this morning, when the sun came up, I credited your account with $86,000. And Lori says, where's the cameras? Really?
What do you want?
That's right. What do you want? And I say, I don't want anything. I just have two stipulations to that money. Stipulation number one is I'll put it in there at the beginning of the day. Stipulation number two, at the end of the day, right before midnight, I'm going to come back. Anything left in that account, anything you haven't spent, I'm going to take away from you. Now, you could move that to another account. You could spend that on family or friends. You could buy whatever you'd like. You can give it to charity. I don't care what you do with the money, but know this. At the end of the day, I'm going to come back and take it away. Lori, you might get another $86,000 tomorrow, but you don't know that for a fact. All you know is I'm crediting your account $86,000 now, and at the end of the day, when you lay your head down on the pillow at night, anything left in a positive balance, I will debit from your account. What would you do with that money? I just gave you $86,000. What would you do with that money? Let me make it easy for you. Would you leave a dime in the account?
No.
How many of you agree you wouldn't leave a dime in the account?
No.
Follow me. Go with me. Every one of us in this room gets $86,000 every day. Because there's 86,400 seconds in a day. There's 86,400 seconds in a day. and they're given to you as a gift to spend however you want. I could not choose who my parents were. I could not choose that I was adopted. I could not choose the crap that I went through as a kid. I could not choose all of those circumstances, but I certainly could choose how I use the 86,400 seconds I've been given every day. I'm going to attempt to teach you a system to maximize the utilization of your time. Because as I said earlier, it's the one thing in this life that winners and losers have in common. 60 seconds to a minute, 60 minutes to an hour, 24 hours in a day, and 168 hours in a week. If you want to be an effective leader today, you know how to maximize that. So just like Archimedes had the fulcrum in the lever that took a 135-pound man and allowed him to move 500 pounds of rock, if you have a great time management or maximizing the utilization of your time system, you'll squeeze out more hours than others. How can you squeeze out more hours than others? If you can take and make the most of your time, you're going to be an effective leader today. Because everybody's faced with the same pressure. They don't know how to manage it. But we don't want to just manage our time. We want to maximize the utilization of it. I don't want to manage money. I want to maximize the impact of money. How do I get an hour and have it be an impact of 5 hours? Lori, let me ask you this. At the end of the day, in this scenario, in this metaphor, what would happen with that money? What did I tell you would happen at the end of the day with the money? It would be gone forever?
No, possibly back tomorrow.
But gone at the end of that day.
Gone, sorry, yeah.
You might get some more tomorrow, but gone. Lori, at the end of tonight, when you lay your head down on your pillow,
Do this to me?
follow me. At the end of the day, what happens to this time?
It's gone.
Gone. Ever get it back? No. Might get some more tomorrow. Maybe.
Exactly.
Right.
You picked on me last time too.
I know. I like it. So, for all of us, I cannot overemphasize this. If you have the capacity to take your 168 hours and make the most of it, you're going to be a highly effective leader. Sterling Moss was a great race car driver, great Formula One race car driver. And he said, most people panic at 130, 140, 150 kilometers. He said, I live my life at 320, 330, 340 kilometers an hour. It's just a matter of learning how to live a life at that speed. It takes a great system to do that. So I will try over a week's period of time to unpack a system for you. A system for you. But for now, let's talk about some of the keys to the system. What do I need to know about time? First, you've got to understand it's a perishable commodity. And you have to treat it as such, in my opinion. In other words, if you call me on the phone and say, can we talk? The first thing I'm going to say to you is, why? What's the point? I only have 168 hours this week. That's all I got. So I want to know why you want to talk to me. Not that I won't talk to you, but what do you want? Anytime these nice people ask me to do something, what's the first thing I always say?
What's the purpose?
What's the desired outcome? What do we hope to achieve? If you can't tell me what we hope to achieve, why am I going to waste my time with you? I'm not going to waste my time with you. Do you want your time wasted by another organization? So if that organization can't tell you what they plan to do in that meeting, why are you meeting with them? Because time is a perishable commodity. You don't want to waste any of it. You never get it back. When you lay your head down on the pillow at night, when I lay my head down on the pillow tonight, anything that we haven't used to better ourselves, better our family, better our community is gone forever. Now, does that mean I need to be hyper? I don't know if I need to be hyper organized or hypersensitive or hyper fanatical, but at least I need to be able to say, what's the point? Because I only got a little bit of it, and I got about 1 million things I need to do, so at least explain to me what we hope to accomplish. I'm being a good steward of your time when I do that. So time is a perishable commodity. Second, as I already made the point, it's the one thing that winners and losers have in common. It's the one constant. So what defines the winner and loser? What defines the winner or the loser? How we use our time. Pareto's principle. Now here's a funny thing. Pareto said that there was some activities, then when done, give me a greater return than the time I invest. Pareto said that there was about 20% of the activities that produced 80% of the results. You and I are going to call those high return on investment activities. High in return on investment activities. That there was some activities that in my work, in my personal life, in whatever, that when I do them, it gets me 80% of the results. I'm going to use a very overt example. High return on investment activity with my wife. Take her to a Broadway show. If I will take my wife, and I don't have to go to Broadway, just find a Broadway show anywhere we're at and take her. That is like 12 nights on the couch watching some chick flick. That is like 7 dinners out where I've got to listen to stories that I just want to watch the game. If I'll just once a quarter take her to a Broadway show, the time I invest in that, I know I've bought myself 90 days. Now men, how many of you know what I'm talking about on this? James, do not show this video to Gina. Right. It's true. And you know how long it took me? It took me about 10 years to figure that out. We've been married 13 years. It took me 10 years to figure out that, because I was sitting on the couch and we were spending time, that didn't work. Take her to dinner, that didn't work. If I just take her to a show, shut my mouth, let her watch the show, go like this, oh, that was a great show. That was one of the best shows I've ever seen. Sleep with my eyes open. How many of you know what I'm talking about? I'm going to get a huge impact. Silly? Perhaps. But think about your workplace. What are those activities that give you a greater return than others? Now here's the sad part. The sad part is that it goes the other way. So I have some activities that when I do them, they get me less of a return. How many of you have some of these activities? So I do it and it actually costs me time. I do it and it actually sucks energy out of me. So there's high return on investment activities, low return investment activities. This isn't Ian, this is Pareto. Phenomenal mathematician, phenomenal philosopher who said, if you can identify the high return on investment activities, proactively schedule them in your week, make sure that they're in alignment with your long-term goals, you're more likely to get there. It's just a system. I don't need to be brilliant. I just need to have a good system to take the 168 hours I have in my week and make the most of them. And here's the tough part. Of those 168 hours, you've got to be parent. In those 168 hours, you've got to be spouse. In those 168 hours, you've got to be employee. In those 168 hours, you have to be employer. You've got to be community member. You've got to have some time for yourself. You've got to have time for your faith. Oh, you've got to make sure you volunteer. How am I getting all of this done in 100? Got to feed my animals. Got to go to Vegas. Now watch. No, this is reality. I got to do all of that in 168 hours. And sometime I got to sleep and I got to eat and I got to have time for myself. What's that?
You don't have time for that in Vegas.
Right now she's like, I can't believe I have all this to do. I'm going to Vegas. Listen now. We got about 8 minutes left. Listen. If I don't have a good system, would you agree with me? Some of these things are going to fall by the wayside. Parent falls by the wayside. Spouse falls by the wayside. My own health and well-being falls by the wayside. Something starts to fall by the wayside. So what we're going to try to teach you is identifying the high return on investment activities, utilizing a system called time blocking. I'll proactively time block that within each one of the roles of my life and make that a part of the 80% of my unconscious behavior. How many remember that? 80% of my unconscious behavior. And the hope is that I can take the 168 hours or the $86,000 she's given, I'm given, we're all given, and I can make maximum impact from that. Finally, fundamentals. So we'll try to teach you some fundamentals that I got to have a tool to do all that. Then I've got to have a planning approach that I use on Sunday night or Monday morning to plan my week. And somehow my weekly activity has to be in alignment with my every 3 months activity, which has to be in alignment with where I'm going with my life. And those fundamental principles are the same way you plan an organization and a group's activities. So this whole concept of maximizing the utilization of your time will break down into a 4 a 5-day process. At the end of that process, I'm going to give you a tool to be able to track your time for the coming week. Where does my time really go now? So the first week will be to walk through the concepts and teach you the concepts. Then we'll track our time for a week, and then we'll do something with that information so you know where your time goes, and then we'll maximize it. Okay, first of all, have any of you thought of it like this? Yes? A couple of you thought about it like this.
Not quite like that, but I know that there's a situation at work that I keep investing time in and it's just not going. It's like, you know what, I'm done here. And not quite like that. Or someone else says, you always say good morning or hello to people. You know what? Build a relationship. You need to say that hello every single time and treat people. You never know where it's going to come in.
That's right. That's a high return. That's right. It's a high return on investment activity. So in each role that you play in your life, there are some activities that get you more, some activities that get you less. We're just going to proactively identify them and then make sure we schedule them regularly.
Unfortunately, in today's role of supervision, and anyone with supervisor in here can attest to this, 80% of your time is spent on
Absolutely. Absolutely.
and the only way to change those people, some of them you cannot change, no matter what you do, so you have to deal with the ones you can change. Unfortunately, you can't just ignore the ones you can't change, but it's, tough.
And so what's exciting about what you just said, and actually we just talked about this with the managers and supervisors for RMWB today, a system for coaching poor performance. Right? The system. And so, I hadn't planned to do this, but I'll make sure that we put that system up there. How do I take a poor performer and coach them to standard performance in a linear and sequential way that I can almost guarantee you 97% of the time performance is going to improve?
But sometimes we need to change our way of thinking. The poor performer will always be a poor performer. We probably should spend more, and we don't, but we should spend more time on the average to good performers to increase their performance even more and help them get where they need to go. The poor performer will never change.
Well, I don't want to get bogged down in the weeds of this conversation, but then the poor performer shouldn't be with us. And then we should move them to progressive discipline and coach them out of the organization. But we can't allow the poor performer to stay within the organization. But that's an offline conversation that you and I can have. But the poor performance can't continue because that's not good for anybody in the dynamic. But that's another conversation. So this time conversation we'll have over a period of 5 days. I haven't decided if we're going to have that conversation next week or the following week, but one of the 2 weeks. I don't know if we're going to talk more about outside the box thinking on Monday or poor perform or time, but we'll figure it out.
Well, you better schedule it and we'll go 168 hours.
I know. I'm just trying to figure out the best way amongst the group. I've looked, what I'm doing just for you guys, I'm going back and looking at the answer of your 3 questions. Because all of you, not all of you, but most of you told me what you hope to gain. And from reviewing that, I'll put more of an emphasis on one thing or the other. Okay, flip the page. Hi, how are you? Good to see you. Bye-bye. Okay. Shh. Go ahead.
What if the 3 things that you initially said you wanted to change are different now that you're in this?
Then you just need to send me a note and tell me that. Hey, Ian, through this I've learned that maybe I need to work on this or that. Okay. All right, here's what I'm going to do. In interest of time, because last time we went a little bit long, and we're not going to go long tonight. So, in interest of time, let's just stop the bus. Know this, that over the next 3 weeks, there's going to be more information posted on the learning portal than you will possibly be able to take in 3 weeks. You won't be able to. There'll be an additional 4 or 5 hours of information on there. So that's why I want you to just focus on what is most relevant to you, and then later, in June and July and August, you can come back and look at that other stuff. So if delegation is meaningful and important to you, watch the video. And I'll in one of the emails, I'll say, hey, that delegation video is on there. If coaching poor performers and finding a system for that is important to you, pay attention when it's up on the website. The emails, though, outside the box thinking, time, and I think the last one is motivation. If I want to learn how to motivate a human being. So Don't feel like when you see all this stuff, you're like, Ian, there's no possible way I can get through all this in 3 weeks. Don't even try. Just try to focus on the stuff that's most relevant to you. All right, let's stop the bus. Close your books. Somebody tell me something you're taking away from tonight. Somebody tell me something you're taking away from tonight. We talked about this concept of being a systems thinker in general. The concept of Archimedes, give me a place to stand and I will move the world, really meant just give me a good system and I can do just about anything. Then we talked about it specifically in trying to be an innovative thinker, and then we started to unpack some concepts of time. Somebody tell me something you're taking away from the conversation. I spent an hour and a half together. So somebody tell me something you're taking away from the last half hour just of this little thing about time. And for anybody, it just doesn't have to be participants. Lindley.
I know I have a guess, but I found you saying that there's 86,400 seconds in a day, very profound. And you said, I wrote it down, given as a gift every day, how are you going to use them?
That's right.
That really kind of...
It hits you, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah. And I know for me, when I really start to take that in, I think about my time with you guys. And I've mentioned this to Sadir before. It's 3 days away from my little girls. That means it's, 172,000, and whatever it is, $72,000 or hours, or minutes, or seconds, away from my little girls. Who right now, I guarantee you, when I pick up that phone, they've Skyped me twice, and they've texted me probably 3 times, because now's the time where we be, cuddling up and sitting down and doing what we do every night, our little routine. So I better make sure this is productive time. I got to be able to justify that to them. Just like you're taking time away from your family or your spouse or your kids, and you better be able to justify this to them. So you're routed. It is sobering when you think of it in those terms.
It just makes you think of the possibilities of what you can do with that time.
Absolutely.
And it's kind of exciting as well.
Yeah. Because if I invest it wisely, the return is significant, right? All right, somebody else. Something you're taking away from this time that we've spent together.
Just delegate what I do more. Like with my position, a lot of times I'm an invisible entity, but I'm there when I'm needed. So maybe there's other things that I can do or bring up with my clients that
Absolutely.
instead of being invisible.
Right. How could I be more of a presence, bring more value, those kind of things. All right, somebody else. Something you're taking away.
This weekend, your new way of thinking. I do have a friend of influence, has been a friend for many years, and she's working on a new project. I'm going to take this and use it for some of the stuff that I think we need to talk about.
Very good. And then hopefully it'll go successfully, but either way, let us know.
Her and I are very good. We've had our conflicts and everything. Yeah, it'll be fine. And
Awesome.
I'm excited to see how it goes.
Awesome.
I'm gonna use this.
Awesome. Okay, now here's the real question. The real question is, we've been at this for 6 weeks now. It's our second time together, or third time together. We're coming into 6 weeks, moving into the next 3 weeks, so 9 weeks total. So Monday morning, it gets tangible. Because that's when I ask you, so what are you going to work on? And the reason for doing that is so that we don't waste our $86,000. So we're all putting in a lot of time and energy. RMWB is putting in a lot of resources. We're all putting in a lot of time. And how much did you pay for this program? How much did you pay? How much did you pay? Zero. You're putting in your time, your energy, your effort. So what are we asking in return? What do we say that what was the ask? What are we asking in return? Anybody remember? That you take what you learn and go use it to build a better place to live. So that starts with you willing to change. Because if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. So, my commitment to all of you, I'll tell you what my commitment is going to be to work on for the next 9 weeks. You want to hear it? I'm going to stop taking every day with my family like the Super Bowl, or like the Grey Cup, or like the Stanley Cup final game. Do you know what it's like to live with this every day? Can you imagine every day of this crap? Every day is a motivational speech. Every day is rah, rah, rah. Every day is attack the day with the energy and enthusiasm rarely known to man. How many would say that gets a little old? So what I'm going to commit to all of you to is, and I'll give you the action plan, that my commitment is that every day is not the Grey Cup championship. Every day is not the Stanley Cup final game with my kids. That there's some days I just need to be dad. And we just hang out on the bed and on the couch, and we don't do anything that day. And that the way that we use our $86,000 is to build memories, and we build relationship, and all those things. Would you agree with me that's probably a good goal for me? Yeah. So, I'm being very transparent right now. That's something my wife has talked to me about. That's something my kids have talked to me about. So maybe your commitment is something that deep and broad. Maybe. Or maybe your commitment is I'm going to shut my mouth and listen more at more work. I don't care. But that's my commitment that I have to work on. And over the next 9 weeks, right? And at the end, I'll have Nia and Nadia shoot a little video, and we'll see how I did. And they'll video report to you. How's that? Is that fair? And Nia and Nadia will hold me accountable, and we'll find out from that 10-year-old and that 8-year-old or 9-year-old now how I did. Fair enough? Okay. I can't thank you enough for your time. I know that this is a sacrifice away from your family. I know you're exhausted after a long day of work. So I appreciate what you're doing. And I do appreciate those of you that send me emails and send me notes and give me some of the insight and the things that you're working on. Keep doing that. And it does take me some time often to get back to you. I realize that, but we have 380, 350 participants, so just bear with me, okay? To our guests, thank you for coming. Thank you for coming. Yeah. And with that, we'll invite all of you to have a good evening, and we'll see you in 3 weeks. Oh, and take some food. Take goodies home for your family. Have a great night, everybody. Thank you.